Hey there, it's Lara here. Welcome to your weekly astrology forecasts, otherwise known as Witchy Wednesday around here, because they happen on Wednesdays. And this one's for the week of January 29th to February 4th, 2020. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. If you're new here, I hope you stick around. And I always start with where the moon is at, because the moon really reflects the day-to-day energies, right? She's our touchstone on the day-to-day. And our ebbs and flows and cycles are closely connected to hers. They are reflective of hers. And so to me, it sort of gives me a sense of grounding when I tune into the energy of the moon. You can learn to do the same, by the way, if you download my free guide to working with the moon. That's over on my website, and you can do that from the link below here. But today we have the moon in Aries, which can feel like we have a little bit more get up and go than we have in the last couple of days when the moon was in Pisces. We're a little bit more driven to action, that sort of thing. It can also feel a bit emotionally frustrating with the moon in Aries. And this sort of depends on how you connect with these energies and how you experience them, right? And what you're used to. Truth be told, it's been a bit of a frustrating day for me. This is like take 4 of this video. I've been having some issues, and so I've been a little bit frustrated. But on the positive side, I do have more energy than I've had in the last couple of days. So that's good. The moon will move on to Taurus on Saturday, and we'll have the first quarter square of the moon. And in that phase of the monthly cycle, when the moon reaches that first quarter square, right, the sun is now in Aquarius. And so when the moon moves into Taurus, Aquarius and Taurus are both fixed signs, they will square each other. And this brings about this moment of tension, in terms of, and tension doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Tension can move us to act, right? It's about what we initiated, or the intentions that we set around the time of the new moon, and where things are at with those now. Like, are we on track? Do we need to readjust? Does something come up that sort of derails us? Whatever, right? These kinds of things tend to happen at the first quarter, and we need to kind of take care of something. Then we've got, the moon will stay in Taurus through the weekend, and on Monday she will move into Gemini. The other thing, there's a few things I want to talk to you about. We've got a lot of energy going on in Pisces right now because we have Neptune, right? The big guy, Neptune there, with Venus. And they've been in very close conversation. This is this sort of, Venus is the lower octave of Neptune, right? Like the personal love and the more collective, cosmic love of Neptune, right? These two energies have met up. And the thing about that is they are squaring Mars, the warrior planet, in Sagittarius. And so as lovely as Neptune and Venus can be together, and I spoke a little bit about this in last week's video, so you can go back and listen to that if you like, but when they are in square to Mars like this, it can be a bit frustrating. It can feel like fogginess and delusion and some anger that may be either misplaced or just there's some confusion around that, or our will is being dampened in some way. We want to do something, or we've got like the drive to do something, but then we can't muster up the either the kind of physical energy or this right here, what's going on. I almost stopped the video but I'm not going to, because this is exactly illustrating what I'm talking about right now. I'm trying to get my words out. I can't. And that's partly what's been frustrating me today, right? It's this like confusion and fogginess and that's going on, and it's frustrating. So it can feel like that. That's one way, anyways, that it can play out. But we may even have some issues of deception and addiction, that kind of thing that, come into our awareness this week. So this energy, like, there has been a lot going on the collective stage, right? That illustrates this energy, and that also is related to the Saturn, Pluto, and all the energy in Capricorn that's still going on. That's not going anywhere. But I've even noticed it, and I think this may be because Mars and Venus are more kind of personal planets. They are more personal planets, where Neptune, is more about the bigger picture, collective kind of, and like Neptune's known as a transpersonal planet. But I've noticed that these kinds of things have been even more in my immediate awareness. Just experiences around me and locally have, come out in the news and various things like that, or even that I've just witnessed with my own eyes that reflect this energy. So that's kind of interesting. So there is some tension, some confusion going on, some fogginess, some frustration. Like when you I said this on Facebook and Instagram over the last couple days. I talked about this aspect, what's going on here, a little bit. So if you don't follow me there, I post more there more frequently. So you can follow along if you want. You can join me. The links to those are below. But I was talking about this fact that when you put fire and water together, right, the Mars and Sag is the fire energy, and then Venus, Neptune, and Pisces, the water energy, what do you get? You get either steaminess, maybe ideally, I don't know, but you can get I get this image of like steam coming out of somebody's head, right? Because they're so frustrated. On that, it can be steaminess like that too. It can be reaching a boiling point, things boiling over, right? With fire and water, or boiling dry eventually if it boils for so long, or the fire gets put out. So those energies are at play, and they're in this conversation of some tension going on over these few days, over this week in general. And wherever Sagittarius and Pisces sit for you in your chart, those two houses and the life themes that those houses speak to are where you will experience this on a more personal level. And I am not going to address those specifics in this particular video, because a lot of other astrologers have been talking about that this week, and you can get that information in a lot of places. Or if you know your own chart, of course, you can look where's Sagittarius, where's Pisces, and you can see for yourself, right? If you know a little bit about the houses, you can see how that plays out for you. I'm going to talk about something a little bit different this week for you. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But there's a couple of other things that I want to talk about before I show you the chart and dive in more deeply to what I'm really going to focus on. I want to say happy Imbolc to anybody who happens to celebrate that. So Imbolc is happening this weekend, February 1st, 2nd. It is also known as Candlemas, or St. Bridget's Day is the more kind of Christianized version of it. It is, and if you want to talk about the modern day kind of watered down modern Western society version of it, it's Groundhog Day, right, on February 2nd. And that really has taken the reverence and the sacredness out of the whole thing. But it's a similar idea in that the focus is on the return of the light and marking the rebirth of the sun, the gradual coming back online, right? Particularly in the Northern Hemisphere here where I live. You notice that slowly but surely, the days are starting to get a little bit longer, right? And so Imbolc is one of the 8 festivals or Sabbats or holidays on the witch's wheel of the year, the Celtic wheel of the year, the pagan wheel of the year, however you want to refer to it. But has its roots in sort of ancient Celtic traditions, right? So, and very connected to the cycles of nature. And if you like superimpose the wheel of the year onto the zodiac, which is also a wheel, right? They're connected. One and the same in many ways. But Imbolc literally means in the belly. And so at this time of year, Earth is pregnant, right? The first seeds of new life are kind of working their magic deep below the surface. And, those first signs of life are starting to stir, although we may not see that with our eyes because it's happening deep in the belly, right? But so Imbolc it marks this time of year when we can now start to sow seeds for the future by beginning to put our plans into place and eventually into motion that we've been dreaming about, we've been imagining, we've been thinking about, we've been contemplating. We've been over this last while since the solstice, after the holiday festivities, right? We tend to hibernate a little more, go internal, spend more time in solitude and in quiet and reflection. Ideally, this is what this time of year has been for, and receiving those messages, as you've heard me speak about before, right? Those messages that come to us from our higher self, from our heart and soul and this kind of thing. So things have been brewing there, and now at this time of year at Imbolc, we can now start feeling the first stirrings, and we're really kind of preparing the earth. We take those first practical concrete steps to growing whatever it is that we've been dreaming about. And so we can mark this occasion by celebrating the return of hope. I mean, in the Northern Hemisphere where I live here, it's cold, snow, all of it. And we start to think about when we don't have to gear up every time we go outside, or when all the lakes in our area are not going to be covered with ice, this sort of thing, right? And it's that sense of like hope, that sort of spark of, oh, eventually spring is coming, right? And so we can go outside and get into the sunshine, connect with the sun's energy. We can, light candles if we can't do that, or in addition to that, we it's a fire festival, right? That fire represents the fire of the sun and the light of the sun, and so we can have fires. We can even bring fresh flowers into our homes, and we can bring a little bit of that spring hope into our houses. Sorry, I'm just trying to there we go. I have some notes on my computer here and the screen just went dark. So if you are so inclined to mark this occasion, then I encourage you to do that. You can find, little rituals and things like that online. If you are curious, you can search on that. Or ultimately, when you're first learning about these things, it's our nature to kind of copy what other people do, and you get the sense of what it's about, but it has to be meaningful to you. So whatever feels meaningful to you, that's what you should do. All right, so that's Imbolc. I'm going to show you the chart now, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into something that I want to talk to you about. Here is the chart for today, reflecting what's going on for us. I'll speak to, first off, here we've got, no, not yet. We've got Neptune in Pisces, Venus in Pisces, right close to each other within a couple of degrees, right? Venus is starting to move away from Neptune now, slowly but surely. And Neptune is sitting right smack dab on my natal sun, which is, oh boy, you know, I was talking about the brain fog, these kinds of things. That's been going on and waxing and waning in my energy in general. But we've got Mars here at 17 Sagittarius, right, squaring off. Pisces and Sag are mutable signs. They square each other. So I was talking to you about that. Wanted to give you a visual. We've got a bunch of energy going on in Aries, and I'm going to focus on this in the remainder of the video as soon as I'm done showing you the chart, where we have Black Moon Lilith, who I haven't really spoken about much before, but I'm going to today, who has just moved into Aries, with the moon in Aries, as I mentioned, and Chiron in Aries. So Lilith and Aries are very close to Lilith and Chiron are very close to each other. We're going to talk about that. We have Eris in Aries as well, which I've spoken about before. Eris spends a long time in one sign, so she's been there for quite a while. And I'm going to talk to her and speak to her in relation to this Lilith energy. We've got Mercury in Aquarius with the sun still in Aquarius, of course. It's Aquarius season. And, yep, the pileup in Capricorn, as I said. So, you know, there is Chericlo there, who I've mentioned before. And Aries is there. Pluto and Saturn are still there within 1 degree of each other. That conjunction, we're still feeling it in a big way. And we've got the South Node there. And we also now have asteroid Pallas Athena in Capricorn. And this energy is squaring this Aries energy, right? These signs are cardinal signs, so they square each other. So that's the chart. Pallas, I didn't put all of the asteroids on there, but you know, Pallas joining the party in Capricorn. Party, not the right word necessarily, but she moved in there on the 19th. And Pallas is this goddess energy, right? She's a facet of the feminine, and she is the wise, perceptive, ingenious warrior, you know, feminine warrior. And so she's joined all that energy in Capricorn to bring her, you know, she's bringing her goods to the table now. And then what I really want to spend the rest of the time focusing on here is Lilith and Chiron. I'll mention to you that on the 3rd, on Monday, Mercury is moving into Pisces. You know, after Aquarius, we have Pisces season, right? So gradually the planets will start shifting into Pisces. But Mercury's going to retrograde. Anyways, we'll get to that when the time comes. It's entering shadow this week, though. But with Mercury and Pisces, we can be a little bit more, our thinking, right? And our communications tend to be more on a symbolic or visual, you know, that's what happens. I mean, look what's going on with me. Mercury's not even in Pisces yet, but you know, we can have a hard time articulating our thoughts and our ideas because those things are coming to us in the form of images and symbols and this kind of thing. And so it can be hard to articulate that. But our thinking can be more imaginative, you know, less succinct sort of thing. More intuitive, more emotional, more compassionate, perhaps. It's a really good, with Mercury and Pisces, it's good for expressing ourselves creatively, right? So there's that. But let's get back to Lilith and Chiron. Lilith, more specifically in Aries. Lilith I'm speaking specifically about Black Moon Lilith. So there's an asteroid Lilith, you know, other things called Lilith, but I'm speaking about Black Moon Lilith, which is not a planetary body, but a point in the sky, similar to the north and south nodes. And it is this invisible magnet that draws the energy of the moon, connected to the moon. And so, and the moon lines up with Black Moon Lilith, with this invisible magnet, once a month when she is at her farthest point in the sky, when the moon is at the farthest point in the sky. So Lilith has entered Aries on the 27th, a couple of days ago, and she will be there until the very end of April, early May. But because of the retrogrades, she's not done in Aries. She will dip in and out of Aries all through this year and into 2021. And she will be joining Chiron. She is joining Chiron. She's within 2 degrees of Chiron right now. Overall, Lilith takes about just under 9 years to circle the zodiac, right? And she is the dark goddess archetype. She is, you've heard me speak about Eris before. She's like the lower octave of Eris, right? As I have come to understand and to know and to sense. And Eris speaks to sort of more the collective experience of the woman scorned, and that on a more transpersonal level. And Lilith is that energy on the ground, right? On the front lines kind of thing. More reflected in our sort of personal kind of individual human lives and acts. If you don't know anything about Lilith in the mythology, Lilith was Adam's first wife. So she demanded equality with Adam. She wanted to be his equal. She would not submit, right? And she would not submit sexually. She would not submit. She wanted to be on an even playing field. And because of that, she was banned from the Garden of Eden. And then Adam took on a new wife who was more agreeable, more submissive, in Eve, right? And so you can hopefully understand that we're not talking about literal people here, right? We're talking about these are archetypes. And so as an archetype, Lilith is very much about female empowerment and the power and psychology of sex and the female body. Lilith literally wrote the book on My Body, My Choice. And so she is really like raw female instinct. And wherever Lilith sits in our charts is where we possess this capacity for really complete liberation, right? Of our feminine nature and even the dark side of our feminine nature, and rebellion. And this can be incredibly empowering, or it can be very nasty. It's again, higher octave, lower octave, right? Higher vibrational way this energy plays out, or the lower vibrational. But it depends on how we relate to this energy, how we harness it, how we express it, these kinds of things. Lilith is very taboo breaking. She breaks the rules. She doesn't submit. She refuses to be controlled. This kind of thing. And so what I feel like with Lilith moving into Aries, for all of us as a collective, we each have Black Moon Lilith in our chart somewhere. I'm not speaking to that right now. I'm speaking to Lilith in Aries. Lilith moving into Aries, I think, will bring increased attention on the ground, on the front lines to women's issues of power and sex and body autonomy, you know, and issues around, you know, female reproduction and who has control over that and this kind of thing. I think all the suppressed rage that women feel, I mean, you know, we can see this bubbling up, but I think it's going to really become more of a forefront issue. You know, exploitation, women being exploited and violated and devalued, all of this is really likely to spill more and more into our awareness, I think. And I think we'll see more individual women taking back their power and, you know, saying, I'm in charge of my own body and I will have that autonomy, right? And more a sense of taking back power and control and demanding equality and autonomy, this kind of thing. I mean, we've seen this happen over the course of history, but I think we're really, a lot of the nastiness is coming to the surface, right? There is a lot going on in terms of what we're seeing. Again, you know, reproductive issues around reproductive rights, but also around sexual exploitation and this kind of thing. So Lilith and Chiron are in close conversation, and they will be in even closer conversation as time goes on. So I see this as potential for really profound healing of these wounds that I've just been talking about. And I think that if we're willing to face that darkness, right, and come to terms perhaps with that suppressed rage, and look at maybe the ugly side of these things, Chiron brings a healing balm, and we grow stronger in the broken places. And Chiron in Aries is about healing our identity, right? And so these themes are merging now. All right. And so what I want to speak to for the rest of the video as we go through each sign is where Lilith is now sitting. Lilith and Chiron in Aries are sitting in the chart for each of us based on rising sign first and foremost. And this is you may feel these inner stirrings in terms of what area of life you are really, you know, you may have some suppressed rage coming out, but really wanting to take back power, really, you know, wanting equality and wanting autonomy in this area, in this particular area of life as an individual, in relation to these Lilith themes, right? And again, I'm scratching the surface here. You can read a lot more about Lilith and what she means if you're so inclined. But we're going to go through each sign, and we're going to, keeping in mind all of what I've just said, the area of the chart where you have opportunity to take back power, to gain some autonomy, to become an equal, you know, and to heal any really wounding that is related to those themes of the dark goddess in your own life, right? So we're going to start with Aries. And for Aries, for you, this is happening in your first house of the self, of I am. And it's relating to quite literally what I was just talking about, the physical body and perhaps, you know, ownership of the physical body, physical sexuality, your instinctual approach to the world and how the world perceives you. And so this is where you have the opportunity to heal things in this area with Chiron there in relation to those Lilith themes, right? This is where you have the opportunity to really exercise your autonomy, to take back your power and to become, become on an equal kind of playing field as well. So that's for you, Aries. I'm going to give everybody just a small snippet because it relates to the themes, right, that I spoke about. So I'm just giving you the house area where this is happening for you. And sit with that and over time and see if this resonates and if this is something that, you're feeling these stirrings are happening in your life. Taurus, for you, this is happening in the 12th house with Lilith and Chiron. So these themes of taking back power and autonomy, and feminine sexuality, body ownership, equality, all of this are kind of happening in this area that's unconscious, unseen, related to what goes on behind closed doors, how you spend time in solitude, your spiritual connection, your relationship to your self-sabotaging behaviors, like those things that kind of derail you, that are bad habits and that sort of thing. It can quite literally have to do with losses in some way in the 12th house, or those places behind closed doors, those transition places, of like hospitals and hospices and spiritual retreat centers and prisons and rehabilitation facilities, and this kind of thing can factor in here. Ultimately, Chiron is offering an opportunity for some deep, profound wounding, and that that may be painful, recognizing those wounds and acknowledging them and facing them, but ultimately working through that can empower you and really give you this sense of autonomy in this area. I will remind you, and I said in the introduction, there is a dark side to this energy. I don't really have time to go into all of that. And ideally, I'm looking at the empowerment side of it. So that's where I'm choosing to focus. Gemini, for you, this is happening in the 11th house, Lilith and Chiron. And so this may be some wounding around female friendships. It can have to do with just groups, associations, clubs, your hopes and dreams for the future, and it can have to do with, taking back your power, about your autonomy, maybe your autonomy in a group setting, maybe taking back your power in a group setting, maybe getting involved in some way, in a more collective way, around these issues of female empowerment, of reproductive rights, of all the things I mentioned in the intro, right? It can have to do, and that can be very healing for you in some way, with Chiron there. Not easy, but ultimately healing, and can give you a sense of growing stronger in the broken places. That's a phrase that I often use to describe Chiron. So that's for you, Cancer. We're going to move on to Leo now, where we have Lilith and Chiron in your 9th house. So for you, Leo, this sense of empowerment, right? This dark goddess energy is being brought to your 9th house of teaching and learning, of higher education and higher knowledge, of your philosophies and your belief systems and your worldview. 9th house can even relate to, religion in some way, religious dogma. It can have to do with that which is foreign to us, foreign cultures, foreign travel, this sort of thing. And so, there may be some urge to kind of take back your power here, and to be on a an equal playing field and to have some autonomy that has to do with these life themes that I just spoke about. And with Chiron there, you can experience some profound healing, right? If you're willing to kind of go there and you're willing to work with those energies and to ultimately grow stronger in that area because you've faced those challenges, those wounds. So listen to the intro, definitely, right? Always, to give you more info about this. Okay, moving on to Virgo. Virgo, we've got Lilith and Chiron in your 8th house. So for you, Virgo, this has to do with you taking back your power, with maybe ultimately having, some autonomy in relation to other people's resources, in relation to, deep psychological wounding, those things that we kind of suppress and bury, those skeletons in the closet, your sense of vulnerability and your intimate connections, right? Like 8th house is very, to put it very bluntly, the house of sort of sex and death and transformation and deep intimacy. And so for you, like on a very practical level, Virgo, this could be you're sort of getting this urge to take back your power in terms of shared resources. Maybe, the situation between you and, like, maybe, I don't know, taxes are kind of dragging you down, and you're going to get a handle on it, right? Or there is some, you've always relied on other people for resources, and now you're gonna, you're determined to have some autonomy there. That's just one kind of example of how this could play out. There are many scenarios, but ultimately Chiron there with Lilith is offering you some healing in relation to these things and really gaining a sense of autonomy and equality, right? And again, there's a dark side to this energy, which I'm choosing not to focus on in this video, but there is potential for that. But ultimately, use this pent up rage in some cases in a creative, empowering way. So that's for you, Virgo. Moving on to Libra, where we've got Lilith and Chiron in your 7th house. And so for you, this has to do with your close personal relationships and those one-to-one connections, right? Whether they be with, significant other, business partners, anybody that you have a close personal relationship with. This also has to do with contracts and agreements. In some, way, it can be like business or otherwise, a marriage contract, whatever. But so Libra, for you, Lilith is moving in there to empower you in some way, and to really equalize things, to have some autonomy in this area. And Chiron's there helping heal whatever this is, if you're willing to go there and to work with it, right? And to grow and learn from this and to be empowered by this experience. Okay, I feel like there's so much more that could be said, but we're running out of time. So moving on to Scorpio. Scorpio, in the 6th house is where this is happening for you, Lilith and Chiron. And so this has to do with your daily routine and your health and wellness, and anything surrounding that in your life. And it can have to do with pets. It can, in the 6th house. I'm not sure how that would factor in, but it's possible to this Lilith Chiron energy. It is perhaps you wanting some autonomy in your day-to-day routines, taking back your power over your health, and, kind of like when I was talking earlier in the intro, like female reproductive health, for example. I'm just like, or issues around, female empowerment, or sexual exploitation, these kinds of things. All right. Domestic violence, like all of these factors could factor into your day to day in some way. Like you maybe work in a health setting that has something to do with these issues. I don't know. I'm just like, that's something that's coming to mind, but in some way, shape or form, Lilith's there with Chiron to empower you to heal these issues in relation to these sixth house themes. All right, moving on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius, this is happening in your 5th house of your creativity, your individual expression, your children in general, pleasure, what sparks joy for you. So Sagittarius, with Lilith there can be the stirring of like wanting to take back your power in relation to those themes, to wanting equality in some way, and an autonomy in some way in relation to those themes. And then Chiron is there lending a healing hand if you're willing to work with Chiron and if you're willing to kind of go there, right, and go into the wounding, and then grow stronger from that ultimately. Okay, so for you, I'm going to leave that there, Sagittarius. Listen to the intro. We're going to move to Capricorn now, where we've got Lilith and Chiron in your 4th house. So home, family, place of living, relation to ancestry, roots, nurturing female figures, the mother, this kind of thing is all 4th house, our emotional security and safety. And so Capricorn, Lilith is urging you to take back your power, if you're feeling disempowered in those areas, to maybe have some autonomy, to create a sense of equality, demand equality in some way in relation to those 4th house themes. And Chiron's there to help you heal through any of those issues, and to allow you to ultimately grow stronger through whatever experience this is for you. You have to be willing to go there. I mean, again, I will repeat that there is a darker side to this energy, which I am not focusing on here, because, ultimately it is choosing to work with this in an empowering way and to not be the victim, of our circumstances, but rather to use any wounding, any rage, as creative fuel, as healing fuel, this kind of thing. Hopefully that makes sense to you, Capricorn. Moving on to Aquarius. Aquarius, Lilith and Chiron are hanging out in your 3rd house. And so this has to do with your communications. It has to do with your immediate environment. It has to do with siblings, cousins, neighbors, teammates. It has to do with, communications. It has to do with early learning, and learning the basics and this kind of thing. And so for you, Lilith is there, demanding to be noticed, craving equality, taking back power, striving for autonomy. And Chiron, in regards to these issues in some way, maybe some rage coming out, and Chiron's saying healing is on offer here if you're willing to go there, if you're willing to work with it, if you're willing to work through it. Might not be pretty, but ultimately use the support of Chiron for whatever's going on for you in regards to these themes. And last but not least, we have Pisces, where we've got Lilith and Chiron sitting in your second house, Pisces. And so for you, this is speaking to your personal resources, time, money, energy, material possessions, what you value, your core values, and your self-worth, and your sort of material security in the world. And so Pisces, for you, this is taking back power there. Lilith's moving in there, right? Demanding equality, demanding to be seen, and demanding her autonomy. And really, with Chiron there, you have an opportunity to heal any issues surrounding these themes in the second house. So, you're maybe demanding to be paid more for your skills and talents, to be paid as much as your counterparts, or as, men that you work with, for example. This is just like one example of how this could look. So working with Chiron can help you really heal this and use this energy in a more empowering way. That is my take on things. That's my take on Lilith and Chiron, and Lilith moving into Aries, and how we may experience this. And I feel like I've just scratched the surface, but I wanted to talk about something different today. And this is what I chose to do. Give me some feedback. What did you think? I'm curious to know. And I will see you next week when we will talk about the upcoming full moon in Leo. Okay? Take good care. Bye-bye.